These are the notes for Chapter 10, Lesson 10. This is the last lesson in this chapter. You need to be on page 862. We've been working with different ways of representing data. Today we're going to be focusing on choosing the correct way to represent data depending on what we want to show. As you can see up here in the key concept statistical representations, there are 5 ways listed that you can represent data. We've specifically talked about 4 of them. Bar graphs show the number of items in specific categories. Box plots show measures of variation for a set of data, also useful for very large sets of data. Box plots are the ones that are cut into 4 quartiles. Histogram shows the frequency of data divided into equal intervals. It's like a fancier version of a bar graph. Line graphs we haven't used much, but they show change over a period of time. Dot plots show how many times each number occurs, and those are plotted on a number line. Data can often be represented in different ways. Representation you choose depends on your data and what you want to show. So let's look at this first example. Which display shows you how to tell the mode of a data? You can see this top representation, lasagna orders each night, is shown on a dot plot, where every dot above each number on the number line shows how many lasagnas were ordered each night. And then we have a box plot where the lasagna orders each night are represented in 4 quartiles, and you don't actually see the individual dots for each of on the number line. You see shapes. A box in the middle representing the 2 quartiles in the middle. The first quartile is a whisker. The fourth quartile is a whisker. The dot plot's the best way to show mode because the dot plot shows each piece of data. The number of orders that occurs most frequently, you can see very clearly, is 27. The box plot shows the spread of the data, but does not show how the individual data doesn't show the individual data or the mode. Okay. So let's go ahead and try to answer this question here. Which of the above displays allows you to easily find the median of data? Now I'm going to tell you now, both of them you can find the median, but which one is the easiest to see? Go ahead and answer that for me now. The best to show the median is actually the box plot because it is a line that is in the middle of the box. So the median for lasagna is clearly 25. In order to find the median in a dot plot, you have to count all the dots and you have to figure out if the median is one of the dots or is the median an average of the 2 middle dots and blah, blah, blah. So it's not impossible, but the easiest one to see the median is the box plot because it is the middle line in the box plot. Okay. Now, we're going to come up here to some more examples. Number 2 says a survey compares different brands of sunscreen. Okay, so we have 5 different categories of brands and then the number of responses, the people who responded to the survey. So it's asking us to select an appropriate type of display to compare the responses and then justify your response. And this is going to be very important for today's independent practice, but also in the Chapter 10 test, you have to be able to justify why you chose the display. Now, as you can see, that clearly they believe the best type is the bar graph because you have 5 categories in the table, 5 categories of bars, and you can adjust the length of the bars based on the scale you choose for the number of responses. So that makes it very easy to read, and clearly the people responded most to brand D. Okay, so for our kind of practice question, it says the table shows the score of each game of the Bears softball team played in one season. So we have kind of a scattered table of data. It says to select an appropriate type of display that allows you to find the mode and explain your choice. Okay, so if we come over here, is it going to be bar graph, box plot, histogram, line graph, or dot plot. So review these definitions that describe what these displays show. Tell me which one will show the mode most easily. Which one of these shows the mode most easily? Go ahead and answer that for me, please. If you answer dot plot, you're correct. And the reason why you're correct is the mode means which piece of data happened the most often. And if a dot plot's showing you how many times each number occurs, well, that'll definitely show you which one occurs the most often. Okay, so now we're going to come down here to C, and we're going to use dot plots to represent the data. That's going to be the appropriate display. When we look up here at the data table again, in order to draw the correct number line, we have to see which one of these data points is the least value. So go ahead and answer that for me, please. Very good. The answer is 1. And which one of the data points has the greatest value? Answer that, please. Excellent. The number 7. So when we draw our number line, it's going to have to begin with the number 1 and end with the number 7. I'm going to pause the video so I can draw my number line and start placing my points for the dot plot. Once we finish the dot plot, you're going to answer the question, what is the mode of the softball games? We're also going to answer what the range is, so be prepared to answer those 2 questions. Okay, so I drew my number line. I started with 0, just for fun, and ended with 8, but that's okay. First off, what is the mode that you notice when we display the data this way? Answer that for me, please. Yes, clearly the mode is 2. So there are definitely 2 occurs the most in this data. And what is the range of the data? Go ahead and answer that for me, please. Okay. The range is when you take the greatest number, which is 7, and you subtract it with the data point that has the least value, which is 1. So the range of this data, you should have said, is 6. Okay. We're going to do one problem from the independent practice before we reflect on what the most important thing to remember about this lesson is. Okay, the independent practice begins on page 865. Number 1 says, which display would make it easier to determine the number of counties with 3 or less trails? Justify your reasoning. So, focusing in on the question, I'm going to turn my yellow highlighter on because, let's see, I think an important word here that I need to highlight would be easier. And number of counties with 3 or less trails is also important as well. Okay, this is a bar graph, this is a histogram. So which one of these do you think would be the easiest to quickly see the number of counties with 3 or less trails? Go ahead and answer that question for me. If you said histogram, you're actually correct. But if all you say is histogram, you would not get full credit because of this very important phrase right here. It says to justify your reasoning. Actually, the number of trails is the most important thing here. So number of counties is here. Here's the number 3. But this is the number 3 that's the most important. So 2 to 3 trails, 0 to 1 trail. This one and this one are the ones we need to focus on. This number 3 and this number 3 means 3 plus 3 is 6. So the answer is going to be 6. So a histogram, because I'm going to pause this because otherwise you're watching me write. Okay, my justification, and yours may be slightly different, and you can word it in however you'd like. I believe histograms are easier because it's easy to read the intervals of the number of trails. The first 2 bars are 3 or less, so 3 plus 3 means 6 counties have 3 or less trails. Okay, so I want you to pause and think, what's the most important thing to remember about choosing the right type of graph to represent your data? Please go back and look at the notes. Don't randomly guess. Choose a reason. Think about a reasonable answer and explain that to me. Please use complete sentences. Okay, that's very thoughtful. I appreciate the effort you put into that. Please come to the math help session if you're confused about this, but I definitely want everyone to show up to the math class and every single live class so you can ask questions and check to see if your work is correct. Thank you.